All right, this light's really bad in my office. Just bear with me though. I just want to flip the script though on one of the most popular pieces of breakup advice out there, and that's the no contact rule. Now, you've probably heard it 100 times. Just disappear, just go no contact for 30 days or maybe 60 days and let her miss you. Now, it sounds pretty neat in theory. It makes you feel like you're doing something, like you're taking back control. But here's the thing. If your goal is to heal and move on, sure, no contact might work for that. But if your goal is to rebuild a relationship and to reconnect with your partner, then the whole blind no contact might be the worst move you could ever make. Now, before you start rolling your eyes, let me be clear. This isn't about begging, chasing, or peppering her with text messages. That's not what this is. What we're talking about here is influence, presence, context, the quality of the interaction, not just the absence of it. Let's look at what actually goes on when people, go into a no contact situation after a breakup. So the common narrative is that she needs time to miss you, but let's be real, that assumes that the only thing that kept her connected to you was your presence. And that's not connection, that's just proximity. And here's where the danger creeps in. If you just cut her off completely and vanish for a month or two, and she's already emotionally fatigued and already leaning out of that relationship, that silence doesn't create longing. It just creates more distance. It confirms to her, you know what, yep, I was right to walk away. Look at how peaceful my life is without him. So you're not creating any curiosity. You're just handing her the space on a silver platter to detach emotionally and go and restructure her life. And that reinforces her belief that she's better off without you. No contact doesn't always breed desire. Sometimes it breeds closure. All right? Imagine somebody gets, let go from a job that they were unhappy in anyway. At first, they might still check their emails out of habit, maybe even miss the daily routine. But if the company doesn't contact them for a few months, guess what? They start building a new routine. They stop checking their inbox and they stop thinking about that company. The emotional string connecting them, it just starts to fray. And then someone else offers them a new job, right? And by the time the old company reaches out with a, look, we'd love to reconnect, they've already moved on. And that's what no contact can do in relationships too. So let's talk about, why do we cling to the idea of no contact? Well, usually because it's clean. It gives us rules. Do nothing, say nothing for 30 or 60 days. It's simple. But guess what? It's a coping mechanism dressed up as a strategy. But real influence, real connection, it's messy. It means learning to be present without pressure, to communicate with calm instead of chaos. And that takes more strength than just ghosting someone ever will. So when you vanish completely, you're just taking yourself out of the equation and you lose visibility, you lose influence, and you just hand over the keys to the narrative, and your partner gets to write the story of the breakup without your presence, I guess, offering any sort of counter viewpoint. And you might be thinking, well, but isn't the contact going to push her further away? Well, not necessarily. It just depends on how you're showing up. If your communication is needy, or if it's reactive, it's driven by anxiety, then yeah, sure. Even one message can feel like it's too much. But if your comms, your communication is intentional and emotionally regulated, it's grounded, well, then it won't feel like pressure. It'll feel calm, like a gentle presence that says, you know what, I'm not chasing you, but I'm not abandoning you either. And that presence matters, especially in long-term relationships or marriages, or partnerships where your absence doesn't go unnoticed. It just gets interpreted. Let's go deeper on that. So look, think about a woman who's unsure about the breakup. So she's pulled away, but she's not 100% done. She's hurt, she's confused, she's guarded, but somewhere deep down, she's still watching. She's still scanning for whether or not you're safe, whether you've changed, whether anything's actually different. And then you disappear completely. And she doesn't know if maybe you're sulking, if you've moved on, or if you're just punishing her, or if you're just playing games. And if she's already protecting herself emotionally, she's not going to reach out and say, hey, look, I really miss you. She's going to keep doubling down on the narrative that keeps her safe, that you were unstable, you were inconsistent, or that you were emotionally overwhelming for her. So the silence isn't neutral. It just reinforces her story. But being present, but calm presence, that can start to rewrite it, not through these, grand declarations, through big, long, I miss you texts, but through energy, through messages that don't expect a response, through something light, non-invasive, that kind of check-in, through showing up in ways that aren't dramatic, but just consistent. Think of, I mean, look, sending a photo of something she'd laugh at, or forwarding a song but no message attached, or simply acknowledging a shared memory without just diving into a big feelings dump. It can be subtle, but it is connection. And let's be honest about what you're really trying to do here. You're not trying to manipulate her back. You're trying to create the conditions where she can feel safe enough to want to come closer. Because no matter how long you disappear, no woman ever came back because you went like radio silent the longest. She came back when she felt emotionally safe again, curious and seen again. So let's bring this back, I guess, to observation, what I've seen in real life. Most of the guys who wait out no contact, bit like a prison sentence, they count the days, waiting for some magical moment where she suddenly sends them a text message that, you know, well, hey, I miss you. And they end up right back where they started because the time didn't change anything. Their energy didn't shift. And when they finally reach out again, all that suppressed anxiety they've been pushing down, it just spills out into usually one big, massive, awkward, loaded text message or phone call. And then, bang, she just pulls away again. So on the flip side, the guys that stay emotionally regulated, who show up every now and then with calm, respectful language, unpressured dialogue, they stay in her world. Now, she might not respond straight away. She may not engage too deeply, but how she remembers it, I guess, to have him in her orbit. And if he's done the inner work, the memory starts to feel different. It starts to feel safe. And that's the real game. So let me sort of go a little bit deeper into why this blanket idea of cutting all contact for, I've heard it for 30, 60, even 90 days, it's often doing more harm than good, especially when what you're actually trying to do here is rebuild trust or reopen a line of connection. Think of it like this. Let's just say that you've got a plant dying, you know, you've overwatered it, maybe it's, you know, you've even stuck it in too much sun. It's just not doing well. So you go, you know what, right, I'm just going to stop watering it completely. Let's just do a 90-day drought and hope it sorts itself out. Now, anyone who's ever looked after a plant knows that is just, it's crazy, it's madness, right? The issue wasn't the watering, it was how and when you were watering. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the soil was wrong, maybe you were doing it every few hours because you felt guilty. But pulling away completely, giving it nothing for weeks on end, that's not tending to the plant, you know, that's abandoning it. And if your goal is to have it thrive again, that approach will backfire. Same goes here. Most guys use no contact as a tactic, but in reality, the strategy should be, I guess, in context and not emotional vanishing, right? The no contact makes sense when there's maybe abuse or toxic behaviors, or somebody needs a clean emotional break to move on. That's fair. But if your actual intent is reconnection and there's still any shred of mutual care or history, you've got to be smarter than just disappearing. Say someone's been, like, I don't know, injured physically or emotionally, they're laying there in pain. Now, your presence at the moment might be adding pressure. Maybe they're overwhelmed. So stepping back makes sense for a little while. But if you just walk out of the room and shut the door and just disappear for a month, what are the odds that they trust you when you come back? You weren't there when it mattered. You left them alone in their pain, and people remember how they felt in your absence. That's key. If she felt abandoned, forgotten, or like the space just confirmed her fears, that you weren't emotionally available, you'd rather go quiet than work through hard things, well, then that silence didn't help you. It helped her let go. A lot of guys don't want to hear this. They want to believe that silence creates mystery, that if you disappear long enough, she'll get curious and start thinking about the good times. But real connection, it isn't built on mystery. It's built on safety. It's built on repetition. If your absence doesn't feel safe, then no contact it's not resetting her point of view. It's just reinforcing it. And here's where the idea of emotional calibration comes in. You've got to know where she's at, because silence can feel different depending on the emotional tone already in place. If things ended with confusion or, you know, panic or some kind of pain, disappearing can make it worse. It's not about texting every day. It's not about bombarding her with updates or trying to squeeze your way back in either. It's about staying on the radar in a way that feels stable, like unthreatening, secure. Imagine you got an old friend that you had a falling out with. Right? You're just not that close anymore, but they do matter to you. Now, you don't text them constantly, but every now and then, maybe you send them a message, or it could be a song that reminds you of them, or you reply to a story with a kind word. Nothing heavy, nothing that demands a response, just small human reminders that you're still around. You're still grounded, you're still safe. That's influence, that's still connection. It's maintenance. Now apply that to your relationship. if you go off the face of the earth for 90 days, hoping it's going to make her miss you, is the pain and now your disappearance, the outcome. It's rarely reconnection, it's closure. You just became the final confirmation that the relationship was one-sided, and there's something else that most coaches don't talk about. People form habits fast. If she starts building a life where you're not involved at all, you're not in thought, you're not in conversation, no fleeting interactions, you just made it easier for her to emotionally move on. And again, it's not about controlling the outcome, because you can't do that. It's about understanding influence. When you're out of sight, you're out of her emotional mind, not just because she's cold, but because she's human. And our brains, like they adapt quickly. We think people will keep feeling what we left them with, but the truth is they feel what they're experiencing now. And if it now feels lighter, freer, calmer without your presence, then your return is probably not going to be welcomed. So here's a better question than how long should I go no contact? Ask yourself, how can I preserve autonomy while still being present in a way that feels emotionally safe for both of us? That's the art, that's the work. You might go a week with no messages and then reply to something lighthearted, right? You might go 2 weeks, then drop something, it's non-invasive, comment on something she shared. No hooks, no emotional pleas, just ease. It's about staying within range of her nervous system. If she's highly triggered, you give space. But you don't go full ghost mode if what she really needs is to feel safe, not abandoned. Remember, most breakups, they don't happen because of just one big event. They happen from that death of 1,000 cuts. Emotional injuries that weren't healed, needs that weren't met, miscommunications that don't get, resolved. So they get better in presence, not in silence. Not constant presence, not needy presence, calibrated presence. So if you want to stand out, don't disappear. Just stand still. Be the man that can regulate, stay calm, keep your dignity, but you don't need to play disappearing acts just to prove a point. You want her to feel something different when she thinks of you. Not the same, pain, not the same pressure, or the worst, the same neglect. So no, don't blow up with foam, and don't chase, but also don't think that vanishing is strength. The real strength is being able to stay within her orbit without pulling her in or pushing her away, to let her feel what it is like, to have that space while still knowing that you're still emotionally safe, grounded, and you're unhooked from the outcome. And that's really attractive. It's hard to beat a man that can do that.